Hello, and welcome to the seventh episode of Keeping Sanity. My name is Alina, and today we're going to discuss the importance and the ways how to do difficult things, why you should do them, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to explain this on the example of me joining the European Youth Parliament. EYP is an organization which brings people together, and they come from all over the world and meet in one particular place to discuss current issues. And the whole idea of it is for teens and adolescents to have a chance to model the work of the real European Parliament and to just get an insight of how that works. So a little backstory about me. I'm an introvert, and I think everybody who knows me in person would definitely say that and confirm that information. And it was obviously hard for me to join such kind of social activity. But I had my reasons, and here they are, actually 3 of them. First one is that I'm genuinely interested in politics, and I have always been, I am now. I study politics at my school. I read the news when I have free time. So all of that interests me a lot. And the second thing is that it's quite unusual, these 2 things. But I really want to be honest about this because I wish I heard about this from somebody else so that I don't feel insecure about such reasons. And yeah, deep down in my heart, I was really scared, and the only thing that kept pushing me forward is my wish to gain this experience just to be able to tell about it at school and university. Maybe that sounds fake or something along those lines. But I don't regret it, first of all, and second of all, I just want to be honest, and it was very difficult, but I kept going because I knew that my future university, whatever it's gonna be, they're gonna like my participation there, and that's just a fact. One more reason why I joined the EYP is because it looked fun from the side. Just looking at it, it seemed like people were having a lot of fun, and I can compare it to this experience of, for example, seeing somebody exercise every day or waking up at 5 a.m. and being super productive. But the thing is that the reality is not always as glorious as we imagine it to be. And we don't think about all the difficulties that people might be going through. With EYP, I did participate in it, but to be honest, I dreaded the actual process of it, and all the 4 days I was suffering. But as well as that, I knew that this is the only way to practice my social skills, and if I don't do it, I'm going to be stuck in the same place of being afraid to talk to people. And it was very important for me to develop the skill, because as an introvert, it's never my instinct to communicate with others, but for some reason I just had this goal to always put myself into situations where I'm just forced to talk and to communicate so that I improve the skill. Because I understood that communication is one of the core things and skills that you have to have in life, because it's going to be very damn difficult without that. A lot of people, when I tell them that, not a lot of, but some people say that I do not look introverted, and I look like I'm just minding my own business. Every time somebody talks to me, I'm very friendly and open-minded, and it's not difficult for me to continue the conversation. But the most difficult thing is to actually start talking to somebody and not looking like I don't care about anybody else, because that look on my face is most of the time just me being scared to talk to other people. And to sum all of my wishes and reasons up, I just had this feeling that if I don't take every opportunity that is presented to me, that I'm not doing enough. And this is obviously a very toxic thought, but at the time, I felt like I have to do everything at the same time and be good at everything. And this participation in EYP was one of those things. And because of my vision of how amazing and fun it is, even though deep inside I knew it's not going to be fun, but I signed up for the sessions without a second thought, especially since my first one was with a very close friend of mine, and it required traveling to a different city, which seemed quite fun because I love traveling and blah, blah, blah. It all seemed like a fairy tale, but in reality, I knew it's not going to be like that. And the second and third sessions were online, so there was almost no anxiety over meeting new people. I could always log off. Maybe it's morally wrong, but the lack of actual physical interaction with people face to face was quite relieving, and I understood that I can just close my computer anytime if I feel too stressed. But now, after I have thought about it a lot, I'm going to tell you the reality of how it actually happened and whether my expectations met the reality. So the first session, even though it seemed bearable and like everybody was excited for it, blah, 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 actually what happened during that period of time, I was like severely under eating, and therefore I had physical pain. I had no energy. I was always mentally and physically suffering. I was starting to develop some bad habits to ease the suffering, if you know what I mean. And I was on the verge of crying at least a few times a day. And all of this was happening in a hostel, which they booked for us. And this was a very small village, so the hostel wasn't really good. And on top of that, it was my first hostel experience. I've never been to one before. And this trip was also taking time from my winter break because all of my classmates were already at home. And I voluntarily dedicated around 4 days of my winter break just to go through this 4 days of suffering. Sounds like a nightmare, but I applied for the second session for some freaking reason, probably because it was digital and it was like my chance to get into the EYP community without having to interact with people in real life. And I was really excited for it, but at the same time, when it came close to actually attending it, I realized that it's the same time as all of my deadlines and it's very close to the exam season. And I almost canceled it. I cried a few times over it, but finally I made the decision to stay, and it was okay. But it was much better than the first one. And even though I had a few breakdowns, I have found some friends with one of whom I communicate to this day, and it's been around 3 months since then, which I'm very glad about. And it wasn't obviously it wasn't the most perfect experience because during the last day I was so stressed that I just left. I just literally closed my computer halfway through the session because even though I wasn't really allowed to, I felt so anxious and so stressed that I felt it was the most important thing for me at that point to just take a break and take care of myself, because I don't know what would happen to me if I didn't. And even after that traumatic experience, I decided to go to the third session. And I was low-key scared because of my previous experiences, but I was still excited because why the freaking hell not? And I actually skipped the first day because I was in my summer house, and for some reason the internet decided to give up, even though it worked prior to this. And it was really weird, and I had a breakdown. I was really, really mad. But it so happened that my parents were kind enough to bring me back to the city where the internet is better. And for some reason, it didn't even feel like an obstacle. I was indeed stressed, but it felt like everything is happening the way it is meant to be happening. And in the end, it was worth it because I think, yeah, it was just generally a really good decision because our committee was really calm, and I felt tired, but happy tired. And we just had such a homey atmosphere, and everybody was down to earth and chill, and nobody was talking over each other. Everybody respected each other's opinion. And this is exactly the committee that I was dreaming of. And this proved to me that I do really like this kind of events, and I do really miss communicating to people, and especially being in this quarantine for God knows how much, maybe 5 months. I do enjoy talking to people, not all the time for sure, but occasionally. These kind of events, it just open a whole new world for me to discover, and it is a very rewarding feeling, and something I can very much apply this to, and use the story to remind myself how difficult things are only half as difficult or less than they seem. I have discovered this method called cookie jar. It can be virtual or real, so you basically write down experiences where you have made a big effort to do something. It was very hard for you, but you still did it. And I made this one on my laptop, and I just put this EYP as one of the experiences. And I wrote down how much I suffered and how difficult it was, but how amazing the outcome turned out to be. And I'm going to give you a more relatable example right now. Maybe it's just less of a tangled story than that I just told. For example, I had quite a big problem since I'm an introvert. I generally never speak in class. Like, speaking in class is never seemed like a thing to do. It was never even an option for me. But the problem was that in my German course, our maximum mark is 7, and I got 7 in everything except my talking in class, and this is what brought my yearly mark down to 6 from 7. And just imagine how difficult for me it was to increase this mark, given that I'm not very confident in German, and I generally don't like talking. But I understood that it is just the only way to get the mark that I want, and I want a good mark. The only way to do it is to talk. It was definitely very difficult, and I'm grateful that quarantine gave me an opportunity to start talking, because online it's not as scary as in real life. And I actually did get a 7 in my final year exam, and my teacher commented on how much progress I was making, and she was happy for me, and this just motivated me even more. I understood that nothing is impossible, and even if something feels like I'm never going to be brave enough to do, it's still possible. And I just love such kind of examples, and reminding me that if I really want to do something, I can, and all my insecurities are going to vanish if I really put my head to something. And just imagine if you have such cases where you think something is impossible, just imagine that feeling of pride and confidence you're going to have when you actually do it. Just take the time to visualize how grateful and proud of yourself you're going to be when you actually do it, and it will 100% help you to move towards your goal. And on an end note, I would like to thank you for listening to this episode and sticking to the end. And I would encourage you to check the description. There, I'm going to leave all the links that to all the stuff that I mentioned. And as well as that, I'm going to tell you that I finally made a website. And disclaimer, it is in Russian. But if you know the language, no problem for you. And there I talk about things which concern me in terms of like studying, productivity, and I just feel like in the Russian speaking online community these things are not covered at all, or just a tiny bit, especially comparing to the English speaking side of the internet. So I thought I would be the nice person to spread the information about this and all the stuff I've accumulated and the stuff I know about it already. So once again, thank you for listening to this episode and see you in the next one. Later.